Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another this and that video. And what these videos are about, just in case you're new, are basically a weekly vlog that I try to cover a whole bunch of different things. Now these are very rarely ever how-to videos, but what I try to do is give you some updates on things I already have going on and to lead you back to the videos I already have on those topics. So please don't forget to check in the description box down below. Click on either the show more, which will be down here below my channel name, or the little gray arrow if you're on a smart device that you'll see right over here, or triangle, whatever you want to call it. And that will open up the description box to see all the video links I'll be putting down below if you want to learn more about the various things I'm going to be showing you and talking about. So the day that I'm shooting this is actually November 2nd, so you should be seeing this within a couple of days. I'm trying to keep my this and that videos closer to the time I actually shoot them. And by the way, for those of you who think I should put the date in the title of my videos, in case you didn't know it, the published date on every video can be found just below the video itself. Even though it's November 2nd, I'm still getting things out of the garden. And no, I don't do fall gardens. That's the weird thing. Well, those of you who've been following me or have maybe had the same issues I have, which I know a lot of you have in your gardens this season, it was just a very strange year. The weather for us stayed very cold, thus stunting the growth of much of our vegetation. One of the things that did well, like always does well, it doesn't matter what the weather does, are our potatoes. And the funny thing about these this year is I didn't do anything special. Normally, we get a lot of grass clippings and pile them on those potatoes while they're growing, and that's how we hill them. We don't hill them with dirt. We just keep piling grass clippings we can get from wherever. And that does really good because it feeds the potatoes. Potatoes like a pretty acidic soil. And so it's okay if as that grass is decomposing, that it gets a little hot. And also it keeps the soil looser so the potatoes can grow better. Well, I didn't even get to do that this year. We just didn't get the grass clippings or have the time to gather them like we normally do. And so I didn't expect to get a lot of potatoes. And no, this isn't all my potatoes. What I decided to do differently this year was to leave the potatoes in the ground and only take them out as I needed to. I'm not going to do that again, and I'll explain why. The benefits of doing it that way, though, is that the potatoes can keep in the ground for a long, long time. But I still have to get them out at some point because I like to let the chickens free range in that area, in my main garden area. So the potatoes I grow mostly out in the front yard garden. And if I don't get them out before the chickens get down to them, they'll scratch them up with their feet or peck holes in them, because there are a couple of my newer chickens really like the raw potatoes. So what I usually do is I dig up all of my potatoes as soon as they're done, and then plant the amaranth in its place. But this time I only dug up some of the potatoes and then planted the amaranth around the rest. The problem I had with that, and this is why I'm not doing it again, is that when it came to digging up the rest of the potatoes, I had no plants there for me to identify exactly where the potatoes were. So I have to go out there and just try digging in some new spots or different spots or places I think that I haven't dug and find more potatoes. So anyway, what I've been doing is bringing them in a basket like this at a time. Last year we got about 100 pounds of potatoes, even here on our small, shy 1/3 acre piece. And I didn't expect to get that much this year because of the weather and then not hilling the potatoes. But surprisingly enough, because the soil was still very loose, I still got quite a few potatoes. Now, I haven't weighed them, but I'm guessing I'm probably getting close to, I don't think I've got 100 pounds yet, but I would say I'm not going to be far from that once I finish getting them all out of the ground. So that's one of the things going on. Another thing was the Chinese 5-color hot peppers that I absolutely adore. I started growing them last year, and I love them because they get quite a few peppers. They're not a huge pepper, as you can see, but this year they were so stunted that I'm just only in the past couple of weeks have really been harvesting them, where I should have had them. They should have been done a month ago. But thankfully it hasn't frozen so much. Even though I grow them in the greenhouse, our greenhouse can still get pretty cold. in the winter time. And thankfully it hasn't frozen enough yet to totally kill off the plants before I could start getting the peppers off. And this isn't all of them. So what I'm doing this year, since I have lots of hot sauce stored up, and I made some hot sauce out of my peppers last year, I made a fermented hot sauce. And if you're interested in learning how I did that, I just made up my own recipe. I will link to that video down below. What I've decided to do is reserve these for cooking only, so just adding them to dishes. One thing I do like about peppers of any variety, hot peppers, sweet peppers, whatever they are, they freeze beautifully. So I've been chopping them up and putting them in little half-pint jars and freezing them that way. So then and they stay fairly loose in the jar even after they're frozen. So then when I want to use them in stir fries or whatever, I can just take a spoonful or two out of the chopped up peppers and throw them into whatever I'm making. Now these are they're not the hottest peppers in the world, but they're pretty spicy. I would say these are hotter than your standard jalapeno pepper. At least from my experience and the ones I've grown, these seem a lot hotter to me than the jalapenos. So yep, that's what I'm doing with my peppers this year. It just would have been nice if a lot of this stuff would have been done a lot sooner. One of the blessings I can say though about this garden year is some of the stuff coming in much later is that it sort of spread things out a little bit and I didn't have as much to do all at once. And then another thing that yesterday when I was out getting these potatoes right here, I happened to find 3 beautiful beets that had been growing underneath my nasturtiums. And so I missed them when I was out harvesting my beets earlier in the season. What I did was I started a batch of Beet Kvass. I haven't made Beet Kvass in a long time and I just love it. I mean, it's not one of those things I like all the time, but I do really enjoy it from time to time, and just the health benefits are wonderful. So what I did is I started shooting the video on this when I started this yesterday, and I'll be finishing that out in a couple of days when this is done, so you can learn how to make Beet Kvass, and I'll talk a little bit about the health benefits, and that will be out in about 3 weeks from the time that you're watching this one right now, or at least the time that this one was published. Remember to check the date. Some people forget to check the date. They'll go watch a video that I did 2, 3, 4 years ago and think it's a current video. So make sure you're paying attention to the dates that things were published, especially anything that has to do with a certain time of the year and even the year itself, because we know this year has been a very strange year. And this last year, now here's a little interesting thing I want to share, was last year about this time, Patrick and I were shooting videos, a series of videos that started out with the one called "What Are You Going to Do When They Come Knocking?" At the time that we started that series, we had no idea what was going to happen in 2020. And I think we started the series at the end of 2019 and then into 2020. So I'm going to link to that whole series down below. It started out as a single video that then developed into, I think, a 4 or 5 part. I don't remember exactly. And I ended up calling this series Tough Topics for Discussion in Relation to Preparedness. So I recommend you check that out. And it is kind of interesting because I know in one of those videos was when we had just learned about a virus in Washington State. I think Washington State was the first state that they found a confirmed case, and didn't even know what it was called at the time that I was shooting that video. So anyway, it's kind of fun to go back and watch that, and if you look at the date and then consider what's going on now, I think that was rather timely. As far as the garden itself, I never did finish doing any more garden updates because things were so weird and also so crazy. But right now that we've harvested all the grapes, I decided to freeze all my grapes. You can see a picture here of a couple of the bags. I decided to freeze them in Ziploc bags, and eventually I'll be taking them out and either juicing them up and canning it, or turning it into wine, which is the last couple years that's what I've done. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. I still have a lot of grape juice canned up from previous years, and because I have many uses for homemade wine, even more so than I do for my grape juice, I like to have a lot made up. So if you're interested in the many uses for homemade wine. And this doesn't at all include just drinking it. This is the many uses, like other ways that you can use it, and why, even if you don't drink, it's a good idea to learn how to make your own wine and mead. I will link to that video I did down below. I will also link to my whole winemaking playlist, and yes, I really do need to redo that first video in that playlist. It's a 4-part series just on the winemaking itself, plus another video that's in there just on mead making and how to make your own fruit flavored mead. So I recommend you check that out if you're curious and you want to learn, or even just want to know why would you make a bunch of wine if you don't drink it. So anyway, with that in mind, back here you can see I did actually start that vanilla mead I was talking about in another video, because the old honey that I have, I'm trying to work through, has darkened with age, which tends to happen if you don't work through your raw honey fast enough. It can tend to darken. Now the flavor can still be great, but the color gets very dark, almost like molasses. And so I've been trying to use fruits and different things to flavor it with that will lend to that color. But one thing that happens with wines and meads is as they're brewing, they do tend to get lighter in color anyway. So I thought vanilla would be a good one to try, and just because it would go well with the color if it stays brown. I might even try doing a cinnamon or cinnamon clove one at some point. But the blueberry one that you saw me talking about in another This and That video, that one turned out really good. I just finished it up. I actually stopped the process a little earlier than usual. I did the same thing with the strawberry one. And what that does is it actually, yes, it's going to have a lower alcohol content. So if you just like to just enjoy the flavor of it, but you don't like the feeling that the alcohol gives you, like I don't, then that's kind of a nice sort of a dessert type wine, even though it's a mead, but it leaves more of the flavor of the fruit that you're using, as well as keeps it more fizzy and more on the sweet side as well, because it hasn't finished working through all the honey that's in there, all the sugars that are in the honey. And so you're still going to have a lot of that fizziness, and I like preserving that. And when I do that, I find it's best to keep it refrigerated. You're going to get the best flavor, and you're going to keep that status of the ferment right where you want it by keeping it refrigerated. When you get into making mead in particular, once it gets to the 3-week point, I recommend taking a little bit out and tasting it every now and then until you get it right to where you want it. So some of the meads and wines I let finish out the whole process because I want a higher alcohol content for using to make extracts and various other things. But for something you're wanting to use that people might enjoy more for the flavor of it, then when it comes to mead, stopping that process a little on the early side, up to a week early. It's almost like a slightly alcoholic natural soda. It's very, very good. And speaking of some other ferments, you can see I have a lot of stuff going on back here. And I also am going to have a video coming out not far away from the Beet Kvass video about making your own fermented fruit smoothie, and the one I'm doing in the video is going to be apple, but I'm also, you can see I have 3 different jars, so I'm going to be flavoring each one a little bit different. I also have some vinegars going that these are both the lime and apple ones, and I did just have a video published on how to make this particular vinegar, but it's really about how to make fruit vinegars in general, and I will link to that down below if you happen to miss it, so you can see how I did that. But I wanted to bring this up because this one back here is really active. That's the one I started later, so that one I really have to keep it stirred down. I do recommend, you can see I have towels under here. A lot of times I like to set my things that are fermenting inside of dishes, but since I have, like I have this one I definitely put inside a bowl, because if that one bubbles over, it's going to stain my counter. But I don't have room all the way across here to put everything in a bowl, so that's why I decided to go with the towel under it. But it is a good idea, just if your stuff bubbles over, to have a bowl under it to catch the liquid so it doesn't end up all over your counter. But I wanted to bring this one up. This one's past the point now that it still needs to finish. I'd say it has another week to go. Again, this is apple lime. So you can see the fruit is not pushing up above the liquid level. It's staying below it. And so I don't have to stir it every day. But if you're not sure about if your vinegar is ready, because yeah, 30 days is approximate. It can be ready sooner than that or later than that. Remember, this is a living thing. I've had a lot of people say they went and bottled up their vinegar, but then when they went to open it, it exploded. Well, that happened because it actually wasn't done when they bottled it up. So what I recommend you do to make sure it's done is go ahead and stir it vigorously, and then listen and look, and if you hear and see it getting very bubbly when you stir it, that means it's not done. This one is still just a tiny bit bubbly. I'm going to give it at least a few more days, but it is almost done, and then I'm going to be straining it out. Now, for the ones that I use frequently, like the ones I keep in my kitchen, like this one here, yes, I keep it in a swing top bottle because it takes up less room than a half-gallon jug, and when you're using it and cooking, it's much easier to use. Also, I do the same with my floral vinegars that I keep in the bathroom, and so I don't have to worry, even if it didn't fully finish, I don't have to worry about it exploding because it's getting opened enough that it's not going to build up a lot of pressure. But other than that, the ones that get stored back in the pantry, those ones get put in a half-gallon jar with a plastic lid. I stopped using the metal lids and bands for storing my vinegar because what will happen, especially if it is still just a bit active, but even if it's not, is that vinegar will cause the bands and the lids to rust. So it's best to use plastic. So I went and got my floral vinegar out of the back pantry so you can see. So yes, when it's back there, I keep it stored in this until I need it for refilling the bottle in the bathroom. And these so-called leak-proof ball lids, even though they're not fully leak-proof, they're still my favorite for storage. To make them completely leak-proof, all you need to do is get one of these silicone rings, or you can get a bunch of these. You can order them by a dozen or several dozen in both sizes. I'll link to some down below. And I just put that inside the lid like that, and then put that on there, and that does make it very leak proof. That's what I've done with these ones back here. Right here is a blend of fennel and black seed. Now, when Patrick and I first went off our thyroid medication, I was having us take a spoonful of this every day, and we'd chew it. Now, while fennel seed tastes pretty good, black seed, we don't like the flavor. If somebody actually likes the flavor of black seed, I'd be curious to know. We both think it tastes pretty gross, but mixing it with the fennel seed makes it taste a little bit better. And chewing on fennel seed is actually really good for your oral health. But anyway, we're taking that for two reasons. One, to get that black seed because there's so many good health benefits in black seed, and I will be doing a video on that. But I'm also going to be shooting, the first video I'm going to be doing is about the fennel seed itself and the benefits, the many, many benefits of fennel seed. It is very good for your thyroid, especially if you have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. So I'm going to tell you that much right now. But anyway, in the process of looking into it again, because it's been years since I was looking seriously into fennel seed and its health benefits, so I'm just thought, well, that'd be a good video to do. So I thought, since I'm getting back into taking these daily again like we used to, we just kind of got out of the habit. Well, I learned something that I thought was really interesting, and that is about the fennel seed and eye health. And in the past 2-3 months, my vision has degraded rapidly, and it's like shockingly rapidly. And I now have to wear reading glasses all the time when I'm working on the computer, where I didn't have to do that. I did, though, make sure I got myself some blue light blocking reading glasses for doing that, and that has helped quite a bit take a lot of the strain off my eyes, which I think it's the strain from constantly having to edit videos and staring and answer comments and questions that come through the YouTube and Facebook and email. So I spend a lot of time staring at the computer, and I'm really thinking that's what's causing the issues with my eyes, and they get achy. The degradation of my eyesight's what's really bothered me. It's been very scary to me. So anyway, what I found in looking into this was that fennel seed, taken both internally and used topically as an eye wash, is very beneficial to the eyes in general in all kinds of eye health ailments that somebody may have. So I went right to making yesterday morning some eye drops out of the fennel seed, just basically making a tea, a tablespoon of fennel seed to 1 cup of hot water, letting it steep for about 15-20 minutes, adding just a tiny bit of salt to make it match the body chemistry better, and then making some eye drops. From the first application of the eye drops, I was just really surprised at how much better it made my eyes feel. And so that's why I kind of want to wait a little bit before I shoot the video, because I'd like to use this for several days. I'm putting it in many times a day, the eye drops, and it could just be wishful thinking, but it does almost seem like even in that short period of time, just the day that I've been doing this, that my eyesight is getting just a tiny bit better. So I'm thinking I might wait several more days before I actually shoot the video, because I want to see if the progression gets better. But anyway, I'll be talking about a lot of the other health benefits. And again, this is one of the things that helped us be able to get off our thyroid, that just because the fennel seed is just really excellent for that, as well as many, many other great things. So I recommend, now's a good time, if you're not growing fennel, I'll go ahead and link to some fennel seed down below. Get yourself some whole organic fennel seed and then learn about the benefits, and then be watching for that video to come out so you can learn even more about it. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.